You know, I bet you guys have already been expecting this for probably a long time, especially with my release of worst game remakes and best game remakes. So, with that said, hey guys, Brady here, and today we are going to be talking about sequels. You may remember way back in 2019, I did top 5 worst game sequels, most disappointing sequels to video games, like Crash Mind Over Mutant, Sonic 06, and most notably Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Ugh. Terrible games. But today, we're going to check out some good games for your gaming pleasure. And with that being said, let us, in the mortal words of Rosalina in Super Mario Galaxy, let us begin. So this first one, it technically isn't a sequel, it's sort of a revival, but I consider it a sequel because Myths and Monsters? Nah, not a sequel. Even though it says Kid Icarus 2. It's technically a platformer, which is what the first game was, except it was done in a different way. Kid Icarus Uprising was released way back in 2011, I believe, and was worked on by the one and the only Masahiro Sakurai, the same person that did the Kirby series and Super Smash Bros. And Kid Icarus Uprising is actually better of a game than you think it is. I won't recommend it though, because there's some stuff that you may not like about that game, but I love it. So, what's different about the sequel? It's got weapons. Tons of them too. Billions and billions and billions of types of weapons. And they all can be used in their own specific manner. So, moving on to the next one. Guys, don't think that you guys have not seen this one coming yet. Super Smash Bros. Melee, or codenamed Smash Bros. 2, is one of the greatest GameCube games ever created. I may not agree on that, but I definitely agree that it is a cult classic. A timeless classic that must never be forgotten. Especially when it comes to some of the mechanics that could be used. It introduced so much, yet it's really low in quality. It's not bad by any means, it's just the fan base that sucks so much. But yeah, this is what changed the sequels for good. For real. So good game. Such a good game. Next, please. The super fighting robot charges again. Mega Man 2. It is a wonderful sequel. It may be harder than the original version, but it certainly isn't the easiest. That made no sense, but still. Mega Man 2 was incredible when it first released. I mean, it was the most ambitious, it had the best story, and the hardest difficulty. It had 2 difficulty, settings. Difficult and normal. So, enough said on that. Plus, it has a killer soundtrack. Next is one that He-Man will really appreciate. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. I bet they made a typo for this title and it was supposed to say Diddy Kong's Quest, but instead was pronounced Diddy's Conquest. To me, that makes no sense, but it does to most of you because you guys are like fanboys of the DKC series, and you're like, that's the best title in all of DKC. But you guys can go watch He-Man's critique on the Donkey Kong Country games as of right now. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country 2 is actually the hardest Donkey Kong Country game I've heard, but it certainly is the best one of all. And yes, I am including Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze in that statement. So, before we move on to number 1, let's go for 3 honorable mentions. The first one is not really a sequel, but it certainly isn't a revival. Pitfall: The Lost Expedition. Super Pitfall was the worst Pitfall game of all time. The first Pitfall made by Activision was a all-time Atari classic in most people's eyes. But then Lost Expedition came out. People didn't know what to think of it, but they thought it was a nice game that had nice mechanics and somewhat of a nice story. Pitfall Harry looks incredible in that game as well. I think that's the best he's looked in any of the Pitfall games. For real. Next honorable mention. Street Fighter 1 is terrible, but Street Fighter 2 is amazing. You obviously know that. So, Street Fighter 2 was amazing, but then we had Street Fighter 2 Turbo Championship Edition. Okay, so Street Fighter 3 is next, right? No, Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. How about Street Fighter 3 next, huh? No, Super Street Fighter 2 New Challengers. Street Fighter 3, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Over 5 remakes of Street Fighter 2. That's how you know it's that good of a game. But yeah. So, next one, which is the final honorable mention. Kirby Dream Land 2 is a sequel, but Kirby Superstar is also a sequel. Sort of, if you think about it. Superstar was incredible for its time. Having a lot of games in one single game makes up for an amazing package, right? Especially for the Super Nintendo version. And the graphics are definitely nothing special today, but they were back in the day in 1996. That's all we had back in the day. We didn't have any fancy Cuphead and whatnot. But now moving on to the last one. Sonic the Hedgehog. You may think it's either Super Mario World or Crash 2 Cortex Strikes Back. But no, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. This is a direct sequel to the first game. Certainly one of the greatest of all time. It is an incredible game. Especially when it comes to the support it's been getting. There's an HD version that can be played online. That's how popular it is. And I believe some people out there think that Sonic 2 for the Genesis was their first game they ever played on the Genesis. It introduced so much. It introduced Tails. It introduced Chaos Emeralds. It introduced new zones, of course, and an incredible plot to stop Dr. Eggman once again. So, with that in mind, we have completed this top 5. If you guys want more top 5s, I need you guys to comment and see what you want to see next. This has been Brady of the Bunch with my top 5 best game sequels. Bye guys, sayonara.